Good evening everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 1st of April. My name is Anuj and I will be taking today's session. Today we will be covering the most important news for today, and along with them we will be solving more PYQs related to the prelims examination as prelims examination is approaching. So let us begin the discussion for today. Today we will be covering 5 main news and 8 quick update and 1 place in news. In the first main news, we will be covering about nuclear power project in Rajasthan as it has been approved by AERB. Then we will be covering about the global choke points as their significance and vulnerability has been shown in the recent West Asia war. Then in the third main news, we will be covering about Pradhan Mantri Awaas Gramin Yojana. So the scheme has completed 10 years. Then in the fourth main news, we will be covering about the new Income Tax Act of 2025. It has came into effect from today. And in the last main news, we will be covering about gig workers as Telangana Legislative Assembly passed the Telangana platform-based gig worker registration, social security and welfare bill of 2026. These are the main news that we will be covering today. After that, we will be covering 8 quick update, and in between we will be covering about Haiti as a place in news. So this is the brief about today's session. Let us start the session with the first main news. So the first main news is regarding the nuclear project in Rajasthan, and the context of this news is that AERB has approved the excavation for nuclear project in Rajasthan. In this news, we will be covering about nuclear power, about this project and overall nuclear reactors in India. It is related to paper 3 where syllabus talks about indigenization of technology. So let us discuss this news in detail. First of all, the development, as we have discussed in the context, the development is that approval of excavation for the construction of Mahi Banswara Rajasthan Atomic Nuclear Power Project Unit 1 and Unit 2 was given by the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. So this is the board which is regulatory for the atomic energy. Before understanding this news, let us understand about fission reaction and the fusion reaction. In fission, there is division of atoms, and in fusion, there is merger of atoms. In both the reaction, there is release of energy, and the reason for release of energy is loss of mass. So that mass is not lost, that mass is converted into energy. You might be knowing about this formula, that E is equal to mc square. Okay, that is the formula given by Albert Einstein. Now let us understand about the difficulty of fusion reaction. So mostly fusion reactors are in the experimental stage only. And what is the difficulty? So you might be knowing about sun. There is nuclear fusion reaction in the sun. That's why it produces lot of heat and energy. So it has been found out that 1 second of energy from the sun might be sufficient for around 4,500 years for the earth. But the requirement for the nuclear fusion reaction is that there is requirement for a very high temperature that should be maintained constantly, very high temperature, which is not sustainable. That's why it is still on the experimental basis. Now coming to the fission reaction, here there is the division of the atoms. So here, for example, there is a fissile material U35. This is divided, its atoms are divided, or its nucleus is divided by passing the neutron. Then there is release of energy. and that energy is converted into electricity. And how that is converted? So basically, by that heat, water is converted into steam, and that steam is bombarded at the turbines. That turbines rotate, and that rotate the generator, and generator converts the mechanical energy into the electrical energy. So this is the simple working of nuclear power plants. Okay, now let us move further and understand about the nuclear power capacity in India. So basically in India there are 24 reactors in 7 power plants. And what are those 7 power plants? First one, Narora Atomic Power Plant in Uttar Pradesh. Then the Rajasthan Atomic Power Station in Rajasthan. Then Kakrapar Atomic Power Station in Gujarat. Then Tarapur Atomic Power Station in Maharashtra. And Kaiga Generating Station in Karnataka. And Madras and Kundakulam Nuclear Power Station in Tamil Nadu. So basically, most of the power plant in India are based on the pressurized heavy water reactors. I think only Kundakulam nuclear power plant is pressurized water reactor. And what is the difference between those two? So here the coolant is heavy water, and here the coolant and the moderator is normal water. Here the coolant and the moderator is heavy water. But in this, natural uranium can be used. So in natural uranium, the concentration is only about 0.7% in U35. But in pressurized water reactors, the enriched version of uranium is used. That is around 3 to 5%. Okay. So we don't have that much of uranium. That's why we mostly depend on pressurized heavy water reactors. Then nuclear power account for around 3.1% of India's total energy generation, and making it the 5th largest non-fossil fuel sources. Please be very clear here that nuclear energy is clean energy and it is non-fossil fuel sourced energy, but it is not renewable energy. Okay, please be very clear that it is not renewable energy. Okay, let us move forward and understand about the Mahi Banswara Rajasthan Atomic Nuclear Power Project. First of all, its location, it's in Banswara, that is there in Rajasthan near the Mahi Dam of river Mahi. Then its capacity, it's that 4 into 700 megawatt of electricity, and it is a pressurized heavy water reactor. We have discussed about the pressurized heavy water reactor in the last slide. There will be 4 nuclear power unit of the indigenous PHWR, that is pressurized heavy water reactors. And as we have discussed in the earlier slides, PHWR uses the natural uranium as fuel and heavy water, that is deuterium oxide, as coolant and the moderator. And it is developed by Anusakti Vidyut Nigam, that is Aswani. It is a joint venture between Nuclear Power Corporation India Limited and National Thermal Power Corporation Limited. So this is about the Mahi Banswara Rajasthan Atomic Nuclear Power Project. Let us look at the various initiatives which have been taken by the government to boost the nuclear energy production in India. First of all, from the recent budget of 2025-26, in this the nuclear energy mission was announced, and there was a focus on development of small modular reactors to develop around 5 small modular reactor by the year 2033. Small modular reactor means they are small and their capacity is around 300 watt electricity. Then there is nuclear energy target. So it is of around 100 gigawatts nuclear power capacity by the year 2047. Presently it is around 8 gigawatts. Okay, then Santi Act of 2025, it consolidate and modernize India's nuclear legal framework, and it also encourage private participation in nuclear power energy. So with this we have completed the first news. Now let us discuss the PYQs related to this news. The first PYQ from the prelims examination is of 2020, and the question is, in India, why are some nuclear reactors kept under IAEA safeguard while others are not? Okay. So where we are using uranium which have been derived domestically, there will not be the safeguard by IAEA. But where we will be using uranium that is imported and that should not be used to make the bombs, that is taken care by IAEA safeguards. Okay. So uranium enriched up to 3 to 5% can be used for making electricity. But if we enrich to 90%, then it can be used to make bombs. And on this information, there was a PYQ in the year 2023 where they have said that there was a statement that up to uranium should be enriched up to 60% to produce electricity, and that statement was wrong. And if you have that information, you could have come to the answer for that question of the year 2023. If you have time, please go to that question as well. Okay, so answer for this is some uses imported uranium and others uses domestic supply. This will be the answer. Let us move to the next PYQ, and the next PYQ is from the year 2016. The question is, India is an important member of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor. If this experiment succeeds, what is the immediate advantage of India? We have discussed about nuclear fusion when we were discussing the development of the news. So this reactor is related to the fusion reactor, and India is important member of this experiment. So the answer would be that it can build fusion reactor for the power generation. We have also discussed why it is very difficult to produce electricity by using the fusion reaction. Now let us move to the next news. And next news is about the global choke points. And the context here is that the significance and vulnerability of global choke point have increased, which has been shown in the West Asia war. It is related to GS paper, to international relation, and it is also linked with the economy. And let us discuss this news. First of all, the development is not that significant in this news. This is important news because we want to know about all the global choke points which are there that can be asked in the prelims examination from map point. Okay, so development is not that important. Development is that according to a report, over 2/3 of the seaborne energy trade depends on the few choke points. In this news, we will be discussing what are those choke points and what are the threats due to those choke points. So these choke points are shaping conflict escalation, energy price, and global financial stability outside the battlefield that we are observing now due to the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz. Let us discuss about these choke points. First of all, what are choke points? So basically, choke points are narrow, strategically important maritime passage crucial for the global trade. Let us start and discuss about the major choke points of the world. First of all, the Panama Canal. So it interlink the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And if this is not there, the ship has to move from below the South America. And it is a very interesting man-made canal where there is usage of pumping of water, and there are barricades. Suppose this is ship. First of all, it will come here, and there will be the increase in the water. Then that barrier will move down, that will go further, then the previous gate will be closed, and there will be the further increase in the water. That's how the ships travels in the Panama Canal. Then there is the Strait of Gibraltar. It is here near Mediterranean and Atlantic, and it is facing threat due to the movement of African plate northward. It has been estimated that in the future it will close down naturally. Then we have Suez Canal, which connect Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, and Bab al-Mandeb, it's connect Red Sea to the Indian Ocean. And similarly, where the issue is going, there is Strait of Hormuz. Then the Turkish Strait, it connect Mediterranean Sea to the Black Sea. Then we have Danish Strait, it connect North Sea to the Baltic Sea. And we have very important strait, that is Strait of Malacca. It connect the Pacific region to the Indian Ocean. Suppose this is closed, then ship has to go through the Sunda Strait. Okay, so these are the major global choke points. Okay, and if they are impacted, there will be the impact on the global economy. Now let us discuss what will be the impact of these choke points. So first of all, trade and energy arteries. So these choke points are very critical for international maritime trade of oil and gas as well as other commodities. So basically these are very important for the global trade and the commodities which are being carried out on the ocean. And as you are aware that most of the trade by the volume take place through the oceans. Then economic impact. You might be noticing the economic impact of the closing down of the Strait of Hormuz. So basically disruption at these choke point will inflate the freight cost, because no one will want to send their ship, and even they will send the ships, there will be higher threat that will increase the cost of insurance. And if they won't send to these choke points, the traveling time will be more, and they will cover the more distance, and it will increase the price automatically. That will lead to the increase in the inflation. Then they is geopolitical flashpoint as well, such as the strategic significance make them vulnerable to the military blockade, what Iran is doing now. Then they are also threat to the regional conflict and piracy at these choke points, and there are climate change risk as well. If you are reading the newspaper continuously, last to last year, there was closing down of Panama Canal for some time because of the drought in the region. There was not enough water to pump the water to increase the height. Okay, that we have discussed while we were discussing the Panama Canal. Then there is industrialization and the digital risk as well. So you might be knowing the underwater cable for the internet. They also pass through these choke points, and that can be destroyed, which will be impacting the digital connectivity. So these are the significance of the choke points. And what are the potential solution for India? How India can overcome the threat due to these choke points? First of all, we have to diversify our energy sources, as we are very much dependent on the import for our energy. So we have to diversify the sources and supply chain, and we have to scale up our renewable energy, and we have to explore more alternative transportation routes. Then we have to strengthen military capabilities. Hard power has to be strengthened. We have seen what USA has done in the Indian Ocean to the Iranians. Okay, so that's why we have to build our capacity, the military capacity, very strong, and it will ensure freedom and openness of sea of line communication whenever some country tries to threaten India, and that will be in line with the India's Mahasagar vision. Okay, so that is for proving a net security provider in Indian Ocean. So with this, we have completed this news. Now let us discuss one PYQ from the prelims examination of the year 2024. It is little bit controversial because the key and the answers which were suggested by various institutions were different. The UPSC key was different. First of all, the first line, the Red Sea receives very little precipitation in any form. That is absolutely correct because it is there in subtropical high zone. So there is very low rainfall. Second statement, that no water enter the Red Sea from rivers. So there can be interpretation that UPSC was asking about the major rivers. There are some minor rivers which pour their water in the Red Sea, but the answer given by the UPSC was that it is a correct statement. So even if these statements come again, UPSC will consider this as correct statement only. Okay, so the answer for this is that both 1 and 2 are the correct statement. Now let us move to the next news. The next news is regarding the Pradhan Mantri Awaas Yojana, Gramin, and it has completed 10 years. Whenever such scheme of the government complete the major timeline, you have to prepare its achievement as well as one or two shortcoming. What was the shortcoming that can be asked in the mains examination, or you can be asked in details in the prelims examination. So it is related to paper 2, where syllabus talks about welfare scheme for vulnerable section of the population by the center. Let us discuss this news. So it was launched in year 2016. So Pradhan Mantri Awaas Yojana Gramin was restructured from the Indira Awaas Yojana, which was started in the year 1996. There is another scheme, that is urban, okay, that was started in the year, I think, 2015. In this news, we will be covering about the Gramin part, okay, and it is under Ministry of Rural Development. Okay, so first of all, what are the key features of the Pradhan Mantri Awaas Yojana? How many of you have seen the web series that Panchayat, especially the second season, where there is a tussle to construct a house for his mother, and he will be taking permission from the Gram Pradhan. So that construction of that house is under this Pradhan Mantri Awaas Yojana of Gramin. Let us discuss the key feature of it. First of all, it provides housing for all in the rural areas, and the condition for that is that it provides financial assistance to eligible rural household, including houseless families and those who are living in the kacha houses. Then its target, first of all, its target was around 3 crores, and the target year was up to 2023-24. But now 2 crore more houses have been added, and another 5 years have been increased. And here it is the achievement of PM Awaas Yojana Gramin. So first of all, there has been target of 4.15 crores, and out of those 3.98 crore have been registered, and 3.96 crores have been geotagged, 3.90 crore have been sanctioned, and around 2.99 crore, that is around 3 crores have been completed. That is 72% of the target have been completed. It is a big achievement. Then what about the financial assistance? So minimum unit is of around 25 square meters, and rupees 1.2 lakhs in plain and rupees 1.32 lakhs in the hilly state is being given. Now let us discuss the other key features. So funding, it is a centrally sponsored scheme. So funding is shared between center and the state, where in the plain state it is 60-40, and for the hilly regions it is 90-10, where the first part is of the center. Then the beneficiary selection is by the using socio-economic and the caste census of the 2011, which has to be verified the Gram Sabha, that was shown in the web series of the Panchayat. Then the program monitoring, it is implementation and monitoring through end-to-end e-governance model using Awaas soft and the Awaas app. And there is the streamlining of the various schemes as well, such as for providing the employment, V-Ram-G schemes is also used. So 90 to 95 days of work is given to the villagers to construct these houses, as well as Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Yojana is used to provide the solar panel. Then other schemes are also used, such as Swachh Bharat Gramin Yojana, so to provide the cleanliness in the area. Now let us move further and discuss about the reforms in the scheme. First of all, there is direct benefit transfer. So financial assistance is directly released into the beneficiary bank account, that reduce the corruption and increase the transparency. Then there is geotagging of the house. That means that they have to show that on the internet and upload the photo that the construction work and the improvement is going on in the houses. Then there is involvement of the village level functionaries. So each sanctioned house is tagged to a local functionaries who follow up with the beneficiaries. Then there is block and the district inspection. So the officer at the block level will inspect around 10% of the constructed house in that block, and the district inspection will be of the 2% of the houses, and there will be social audit. So the beneficiary will be asked about the benefit and what they think about the program and how they get benefit, and the achievement will be announced in the public, so that those achievements can be verified through the public, that is social audit. So with this we have completed this news. So there is no direct PYQ in the prelims examination related to this scheme, but there was a prelims question in last year related to PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, and the question was very detailed. So what are the statements which are given? This is the prelims question of the last year. So it targets installation of 1 crore rooftop panel in the residential sector. It is a correct statement. Second, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy aims to impart training in the installation, operation, maintenance and repair of the solar rooftop system at the grassroots level. So these two are of the capacity building initiative under this PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. First one is the target of it, and these two are the capacity building program under this PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. So the third statement is it aims to create more than 3 lakh skilled manpower through the fresh skilling and upskilling under scheme component of capacity building. So these three statements were correct. It is little bit hard because very small detail was asked in the question. So the answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. With this, we have completed this news. Now let us move to the next news. Next news is about the new Income Tax Act of 2025, which have came into effect from today. It is related to paper 3, where syllabus talks about economic development. Let us discuss this news. First of all, the development. So this Income Tax Act 2025 replaced the 6-decade old Income Tax Act that was of 1961, and the objective is to enhance predictability, transparency, reduce compliance burden, and offer taxpayer a streamlined and simplified tax filing process. So this act is there for the direct tax. In your syllabus, you might be knowing about direct taxation and indirect taxation. It is progressive tax. It is regressive. What is the meaning of progressive and regressive? Basically, with the higher incomes, this tax will be high, and this is will be applied same on everyone. Here the incidence is directly on the individual who is paying the tax. Here incidence is not directly on the individual. The example here is GST, goods and service tax. You should be very clear about direct taxes and the indirect taxes and what is the collection of Government of India. Now let us discuss this new act. What are the key provision of the act? First of all, its main aim is to simplify the language and the framework. Now act has consolidated from 819 to 536 sections and 390 to 190 form. So before act of 1961 was very bulky and was complicated to understand. So they have simplified its language and it made as a linear act. Then there is provision of minimum alternate tax and alternate minimum tax have been separated. Before there was in the same section. Now there are in 2 subsections. What is the minimum alternate tax? So what was happening that some companies were showing lot of profit, but they were paying zero tax to the government. So government said that although you are taking many concession, but you have to pay a minimum amount to the government, that is known as the minimum alternate tax, and it applied to the corporates only. And the same provision in the case of individuals or non-corporate is known as alternate minimum tax, and the rate for minimum alternate tax is around 15%, and for alternate minimum tax is around 18%, and they have to be added with the surcharge and the cess. Now let us discuss the other provisions. Next is the tax year concept. So previously what used to happen is there was a separate concept of financial year and the assessment year. Suppose I have earned the money in the last financial year, but the government was assessing my income of the last year in the present year. That's how financial year and the assessment year was different. But now the government has said that they have been merged into single and unified term, that is tax year. Then there are some stability in the core tax elements, such as tax rate and regime for the individual and the corporation remain unchanged. There are no changes in offenses and penalties. Most definitions have also been retained, and faceless connection of information and assessment of tax cases. So they have been stability in the core tax element. Then they have changed about undisclosed income. Here they have included the virtual digital assets income as well, such as blockchains. Okay, the income in the blockchains. So that has to be shown to the government, and there will be taxes on them. Then there with virtual digital space access. Now, income tax authorities are now allowed to gain access to the virtual digital space during search and the seizure procedures. So they can go through your emails and your account to think or to show there are the mishappening in the taxes. So these are the some important provision of these act which are being applied from today. Now let us discuss one PYQ. So the PYQ is related to GST, that is related to the indirect taxation. When GST was introduced, there was a question in the prelims as well in the mains examination, and in the mains examination the question was twice. I think one was in 2017 or 18, and then again after 5 years there was a question in the mains examination where UPSC have asked about the achievement of the GST. So similarly, they can also focus on the direct taxation and the components of the direct taxation in this year prelims examination. So the question of the 2017 which is related to GST is that what is or are the most likely advantage of implementing goods and the service tax? First, it will replace the multiple taxes collected by multiple authorities and thus will create a single market in India. It's a correct statement. That was the purpose of the GST. It's a very easy question. Second, it will drastically reduce the current account deficit of India and will enable to increase its foreign exchange reserve. So here the word which is very important is that it will drastically reduce. Okay, it will increase the ease of doing business in India and that can eventually lead to decrease in current account deficit, but it won't reduce it drastically. So this statement is not correct. Then third, it will enormously, again a very strong word, increase the growth and the size of the economy of India and will enable it to overtake China in the near future. Such goal was not mentioned in the GST. That's why the answer would be A, one only. Okay, let us move to the next news. And the next news is related to the gig workers, and the context is here that the Telangana Legislative Assembly have passed the Telangana platform based gig worker registration, social security and welfare bill of 2026. It is related to paper 2 where syllabus talks about welfare scheme for vulnerable sections of the population by the center and the states. Let us discuss this news. Let me ask you a question. What is the meaning of word gig and how and why the word gig was used? So basically the word gig was used for the performance by the musical or the comedian's person as a individual act. Now this whole workers who are not permanently employed are known as gig workers. So here development is that the Telangana gig workers bill seek to regulate gig and the platform work and is similar to those passed by the other 4 states. And what are those 4 states which have passed a similar bill or the similar act related to gig workers? Karnataka, Rajasthan, Jharkhand and Bihar. So those are the state: Karnataka, Rajasthan, Jharkhand and Bihar. And what is the aim of these bills? These are for constitution of special welfare board, government levy on the aggregators, unique ID for the gig workers and penalties for the non-compliances. We will be understanding what the meaning of these terms in the further slide. Let us discuss this news. First of all, what are gig workers? So according to Code on Social Security of 2020, gig workers is a person who perform work on or participate in a work arrangement and earn from such activities outside of traditional employer-employee relationship. Traditional employer-employership means the permanent work profile. Suppose a worker is working with a company and he is permanently employed. If there is a work, if there is no work, he or she has to be paid by the company, that is traditional employer-employee relationship. And gig workers have increased from 77 lakh workers in the year FY21 to 120 lakhs worker in FY25, representing over 2% of Indian total workforce. And gig workers are basically divided into two parts. One is platform based gig workers and non-platform based gig workers. You might be ordering food from Zomato or Swiggy. So those workers who are dependent on a platform for their employment is known as platform based gig workers. And there are non-platform based gig workers as well, such as the construction workers. So you might have seen in your area that many construction workers are brought by the middlemen, and they are appointed for some days there and some time. Those are non-platform based gig workers. And what are the challenges for gig workers? First of all, income and job volatility, as there are very few contracts, so there is issues with the income as well as the job stability. Then there is challenges in accessing the credits from the banks. Then there is issue with the financial inclusion as well, as they have very much limited access from the banks. That's why they are not included in the financial inclusion. Then there will be algorithmic biases. What is the meaning of this? Suppose you are riding Uber, and that worker who is working in this Uber, he want to go to his home and he select the position near to his house, but there can be chances by the algorithm that he is given a riding very far from his house, so that he has to work extra time to reach his house back again. Then there is lack of social security, obviously. Then there are safety concern. You might have seen that the 10-minute delivery has been removed because there was increase in accidents. So such types of safety concerns are there related to gig workers. Let us move further and understand about Code on Social Security of 2020. So it's provide a formal recognition to gig workers and platform workers in India. So basically, platform workers is type of gig workers. Okay, please be very clear. And aggregators, who are the aggregators? These companies such as Ola, Uber, Zomato, Swiggy, these are the aggregators, are required to contribute 1 to 2% of their annual turnover, not profit, their annual turnover, and it is capped at 5% of payment made or payable to the gig or the platform worker to a social security fund. So a social security fund will be maintained, and here contribution will be from the aggregators. And the fund finances a range of welfare scheme to these workers, especially the gig workers. Then each worker will receive a unique Aadhaar linked ID, which will be generated through registration on eShram portal, which will be allowing their social security benefit to be portable across platform. So suppose one day they are working on Ola and another day they are working on the Uber. So their social security benefit can be transferred even if they are frequently changing the platforms. So these are the key provision regarding gig workers in Code on Social Security of 2020. Now let us discuss one PYQ of the year 2021. And the question is related to casual workers. The question is, with reference to casual workers, temporary, casual means casual worker employed in India, consider the following statement. All casual workers are entitled for employee provident fund coverage. This is not an correct statement. Very extreme statement. But then you will say that even the second statement is extreme, that all casual workers are entitled for regular working hours and overtime payment. So this is for the safety that if they are working overtime, they should be given double the payment. In the case other than agriculture, in agriculture it is around 1.5. It is an correct statement. Then the government can by a notification specify that an establishment or an industry shall pay wages only through its bank account. Okay, don't you think that government is entitled for such notifications to clearing black money from the market? Okay, obviously this is an correct statement. So the answer would be B, 2 and 3 only. Okay, now let us discuss the place in news for today. So the place in news for today is Haiti. And the context is not that important, but this region is continuously in news because of the blockade of the Cuba by USA, and recently a ship has been sent by Russia. There was a fuel crisis in the Cuba. So this total area is continuously in news. The context is that 70 people killed and 30 injured in a brutal armed gang attack in the region of Haiti. Okay, let us discuss the various feature of country that is Haiti. So basically it is an island country which is located between Caribbean Sea and the North Atlantic Sea. Ocean. So here it is Caribbean Sea and here it is North Atlantic Ocean. And neighboring countries are Dominican Republic border Haiti in the eastern region here. Here. This is Dominican Republic and Cuba on the northwest. We have also discussed that Cuba is continuously in news. So it has won independence from France in the year 1804, and there is a mountain range that is known as Haiti, which means land of mountain, and on these mountain range this country has been named. Then its position is there on the edge of a tectonic plates, make it vulnerable to strong earthquake. And what are those tectonic plates? Here it is Caribbean plate and then there is North American plate. So it is there on the boundary. Okay, it is there on the boundaries of two plates. So with this we have covered the place in news for today. Now let us discuss the quick update. And the first quick update is regarding the census of 2027. And the context here is that the first phase of the census 2027 have begun on 1st April, that is on today. So the here we will be covering about the census of 2027. First of all, it is the 16th census if we consider the first census to 1872 census. So this is the 16th census and this is the 8th census after the independence, and the last census took place in the year 2011. Basically we have to take census after 10 years, but there was a issue of COVID pandemic, that's why there has been delay in the census. Second, it is the world largest and first digitally conducted census with option of self-enumeration. Then it will be conducted in two phases, and now we have started the first phase, and there will be house listing and the population enumeration. It will also include the first national-wide caste enumeration in independent India. Previously, the caste enumeration was there in the year 1931, that was before independence. Okay. It is conducted by Office of Registrar General and Census Commission, Ministry of Home Affairs. And what are the legal backing? That is Census Act of 1948 and Census Rule of 1990. Okay, so this was all about the census of 2027. Let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is regarding the naval warships. So Indian Navy have received key naval warships. Let us understand about those naval warships. First one is Malwan. It is on the name of a town of a Maharashtra. It is near to Sindhugarh. So it is the second anti-submarine welfare of shallow water craft which is indigenously designed and constructed by the Cochin Shipyard Limited at the Kochi, and it is based on the name of the town which is of Maharashtra. It is linked, that town is linked to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Okay, then there have been release of 3 frontline naval platforms which have been built by the Garden Reach Shipyard and Engineer Limited. Please try to remember these names, that is Garden Reach Shipyard and Engineer Limited. It is there in Kolkata. Then there is Mazdagon, that is there in Goa, and there is Cochin Shipyard Limited, that is there in Kochi. So first one is indigenous stealth freight Dunagiri. It is a 5th of Nilgiri class, that is project 17A, and it is capable of striking designated targets with missile, and it has a stealth facility. That means that it will not come under the radar, that it will be very difficult to detect. Then there is 4th survey vessel, that is named as Sansodak. So it will carry out coastal and deep water hydrographic surveys. These surveys are conducted to know about the terrains of the ocean. Then there is Agre, and it is designed to destroy the enemy submarines. Let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about RBI's 2-factor authentication. Okay, the rules have been changed from today. The context is that only based on the RBI rule from 1st April, all digital transaction must verified using a 2-factor authentications with at least 1 factor being dynamic. So previously there was only 1-factor authentication. That means if you want to draw money or you want to send money, there used to be only one requirement of OTP, but there was more chances of fraud in such authentication. That's why 2-factor. One OTP will be there, then there will be one static factor authentication, that is face recognition or thumb impression, or there can be the recognition of device. That is the meaning of 2-factor authentication that is being implied from today by the RBI to reduce the digital frauds. Okay, now let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about Samrat Samprapti, and the context here is that the Prime Minister have inaugurated the Samrat Samprapti Museum in Koba, that is there in Gandhinagar, Gujarat, on Mahavir Jayanti. In this news we will be covering about Samrat Samprapti. So he was a Mauryan Empire, and he was the grandson of the Ashokan Empire, the Ashoka the Great, and he was born to the father Kunal and mother Kanchanmala, and he is also known as Indrapalit, Sangat and Vigat Ashok. As well as his life is described in the Jain scripture like Samprapti Katha, Pariswati Parva and Prabhava Charita. Okay, so these are in these Jain scripture his life has been described. Basically, he spread Jainism. Okay, Buddhism was spread by Ashoka, and he extensively spread Jainism. That's why he is also known as Jain Ashok. Okay, he is pivotal role in spreading Jainism, and he is also referred as Jain Ashok, and he is the principle of ahimsa, that is non-violence across the subcontinent. Now let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about remotely piloted strike aircraft, that is Ghatak, and the context here is that Indian Air Force is preparing to induct unmanned stealth fighter under the remotely pilot strike aircraft program. This is the context. The context is not that important, but here the program is important for your prelims examination. First of all, what is the aim of this program? It aims to develop unmanned, compact, aerial vehicles which are known as Ghatak. Okay, UCAVs. UCAVs stand for Unmanned Compact Aerial Vehicle. And it usually, UCAVs usually carries aircraft ordnance such as missile and bombs and is used for drone strike and other military operation. Basically, we won't be sending our pilot and we won't be risking their life. So we will be sending unmanned vehicles. So that is the basic meaning here. And it is a stealth capable. That means that it won't be recognized easily by the radar system of the other countries. And once operational, it could undertake deep strike mission without the requirement of pilots and penetrate heavily defended airspace to hit high value target without placing violent life at risk. That is the main purpose. First, it is very accurate. Second, it will save the life of the pilots. Okay, let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about Jorari Luni Bandi river system. So Luni is a river and the Jorari and Bandi are its tributaries. So what is the context? The context is that the Supreme Court have appointed a high level committee, highlighted that the industrial pollution have polluted the Jorari Luni Bandi river system. Here we will be covering about this river system and mainly about Luni river. Luni stand for salty and it is it have a very high salt water content, this river, and it originates from the western slope of the Aravallis near Ajmer and it does not reach sea. Okay, please be very clear that Luni river does not reach sea and its end into run of Kutch. Okay, then its tributaries include Jorari, Bandi, Mitri, Lilari, Sukri, Javai and other tributaries. Okay, let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update is about the E20 ethanol blended petrol. And what is the context here? That the directives from Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, which is in force from today, required to dispense E20 fuel with minimum 95 octane rating in the country. What is the octane number? So basically, octane number in petrols basically reduce the knocking in the engine. And higher octane number means the better in reducing the knocking in the engine and it will keep the engine safe. Okay. And let us cover about E20 fuel. So it is an 80-20 mix of petrol and ethanol, and National Policy on Biofuels of 2018, which have been amended in the year 2022, have advanced the target of 20% blending of ethanol in petrol to ethanol supply years 2025 from the year 2030. You might have seen that there was a controversy regarding E20 fuels as well, where there have been reports that it is harming the engine. So in this direction, government have taken the step. Okay, so what are the benefit of it? That E20 fuel, that it improve the fuel performance and strengthen the energy security. Then what are the concerns? That it reduce fuel efficiency in some vehicles because the energy produced from the ethanol is lower when compared to the petrol. Then it is corrosive in nature and can damage the older vehicle. That are the concerns related to E20 fuels. Now let us move to the next quick update. The next quick update and the last quick update is about quantum entanglement. And the context here is that scientists from Australia and US have shown that helium atom can be entangled through their movement like quantum entanglement seen in the lighter particle like electrons. Okay, so it is related to quantum physics. So here we will be learning about quantum entanglement. So in quantum theory, one of the phenomena is quantum entanglement. And what it means, that the particle of the same origin which were connected always stay connected. That means suppose there are two particle, particle 1 and this particle 2. And if I disturb this particle will be also disturbed. This is quantum entanglement. And if this is particle and if stays in two position at same time, that is quantum superimposition. That is one more important speciality of quantum theory, that is basic about quantum entanglement and quantum superimposition. And what is quantum? Quantum is the study of atom and subatomic particle and how they interact with each other. So this was all about today's session. To read further of our current affairs and to solve smart quizzes, you can visit digital current affairs website of us and please solve the question which are visible on your screen. Thank you and all the best for your preparation.